What up, what up, what up? Welcome to another episode of New Orleans Basketball, a New Orleans Network podcast. As always, I'm your host, Rafael Rattler, joined with my fellow middle brother, Garrett G. Monterella. What's poppin' with you, bro?
What up, bro? Everything's all good on this side, man. Just got back from an extended vacation out there in New York, man. I enjoyed it. It's my first time to the Big Apple, man. My first time as an adult. And I enjoyed it, man. Listen, there are a lot of different things that go on in New York that, let's just say, remind me a lot of home in New Orleans. One of my favorite things out there was Canal Street, and their Canal Street is very, very similar to the Canal Street in New Orleans, except for the fact that there are people on every corner trying to sell you $50 Coach bags and $60 Marc Jacob wallets. So it was quite the experience, but I enjoyed it, man. I enjoyed the views out there. Extra beautiful city, man. If you ever get a chance to get out there, go out and do it. And then I came home, man, and I this is a basketball pod, but y'all been rocking with me for a while, and my nerdiness had to come out because shout out to Marvel Studios for having me sit in front of my computer at work for 5 straight hours, looking at chairs changing as they release the cast of Doomsday. So, partial of the cast. So I nerded out all today. I know some of the people that follow me and that watch the pod also nerded out today. So shout out to you guys. Y'all know who y'all are. But man, it was an awesome day today. I enjoyed it. But and obviously, as we transition to basketball, I want to give a big heartfelt and shout out to Juju Watkins of USC. Women's basketball team, of course, one of the biggest stars in college basketball and women's basketball and basketball in general, man. Tore her ACL in the tournament, man, was killing it. Was looking really forward to seeing how far she could take this Trojans team, man. But big shout out to her and a big get well soon from her as well. To her as well as she recovers back from this. But I came back and I also went to the Pelicans game, man, and it was let's just say there were more stars in the Doomsday cast than there were on the floor for the Pelicans, for the Pelicans 76ers game. It was quite the tank off, and it was fun though. It was fun. It was a fun atmosphere. But outside of that, man, West Bank Rick, you already know the vibes. I already caught up on everything and watched the break room. So we here with it, brother. But everything is all good on this side, man. How's everything going on with you?
Everything is blessed. Like I said, it is basketball time, basketball mecca time if you're a basketball hoop fan, because between college popping off, shout out to my Razorbacks.
Talk
Gotta
to
get
them.
one done.
Talk
Gotta
to
get
them.
another
Let's
one
go.
done.
Let's
Texas
go.
Tech
Yes,
tomorrow.
sir.
Between that side, between the women's side, between the NBA starting to heat up and people starting to play meaningful games and come back from injury, and such, like this is the time where you feel rejuvenated, because like we talk about, those nasty summer months where there's no basketball and there's no football and you're just kind of there twiddling your thumbs, they're right around the corner. So you got to enjoy it while you can. But before we go too far, make sure you guys are following us and checking us out. That's NO_basketball, no E. Make sure you're liking the episode below. That's on all your social media platforms. And let's get into the show. So, again, the Pelicans games, I don't want to call them meaningless, Garrett, because like, Antonio Daniels and like Joe Myers and like every announcer or player who's been around the league, none of the minutes are meaningless because someone's trying to fight for a position, someone's trying to fight for a job, someone's trying to come back off injuries. There's always something to be gained out of these minutes. But again, the Pelicans are eliminated from playoff contention. So, and they have been, and even if you kind of knock away the officialness to it, they've been kind of out of it for a long time. It's kind of been this way for some time. So the back half of the season has been about development and what can you build. Well, in the natural Pelicans flavor, of course, Trey Murphy gets hurt and less than 1 minute into a game. And of course, Jordan Hawkins rolls his ankle. So you're getting to that point where it's like, all right, what are we going to do here to make sure we continue to play games, but at the same time not be dumb? Because every time we put someone on the court, someone goes down and you have to get the successful surgery update. so on forth. But that being said, the Pelicans are a deep young roster that, again, you don't have your top guys, so it doesn't look great, and the results are what the results are at this point. But at the same time, you're looking to get grains of salt to see, okay, can Karlo Matkovic give me 20 minutes a night starting next season? Like, what can Yves Missi become, and what is the ultimate form of Yves, and what are the things he has to focus on in the offseason, so on and so forth. And that's what you're really looking at this prism of games at. That being said, anything stood out to you just over the last couple of games, 76ers game included? By the way, they are doing the most phenomenal tank job I've ever seen in my life. But go ahead.
Yeah, there was some egregious basketball taking place in that Smoothie King Center, man. It was less than ideal. But I think, one of the things, obviously, again, there's very little that you can take from here. The first thing is, it's very difficult. We always talk about, how only a sit deals in absolutes. It's very difficult to have, a basketball team take the floor, and half of the fan base in the world wants you to get Cooper Flagg and get the number one pick in the draft. And is in order to get that, you have to lose. So when you lose, you can't really be like, oh well, the Pelicans are throwing some trash out there. Well, yeah, because they trying to lose so that they could do the thing that you want them to do. So it's hard to evaluate because you're looking at bad basketball from a lot of guys who had no idea they would be playing for the Pelicans about 5 months ago, or probably even closer to now than that. And so it's very difficult to kind of evaluate what's going on. But obviously there are things that you can take and see moving forward. I think we talked about off the pod, as quiet as it's been and as sidetracked as, this season has gone, Jose Alvarado has really taken a step up, on the basketball court. I think, from a decision-making standpoint, from a confidence standpoint, from a shooting standpoint, really is where you really see it, right? He's gotten to a point. You remember the first time he kind of blew on the scene, and the clip that went viral was him telling the defender, "Yes, I can shoot." When the guy was like, "Hey, can this guy shoot?" Yeah, that guy can kind of shoot now, right? Like he's close to 40% on the 3-pointers this season. And I think, just his confidence, even with the amount of guys that have been out, he's found a way to be effective in games in the ways that Jose to be effective. But he's also shown you that, hey, he's a viable catch and shoot guy now. He's a viable floor general with better talent. You would imagine, he would even be a better player. But even with the guys that are available, he's put them in good positions to be successful. And that also brings me to, the guy who's really been showing some chops now, getting more minutes, and that's Karlo Matkovic. He's shown a lot as a developmental mobile big. I think the one thing that I really like about him is that he subscribes to the KISS method, the keep it simple, stupid. Like he takes the ball and he moves it and he keeps moving and he keeps moving and he sets screens. And then there are times where he flashes and he makes himself available. And you wouldn't even understand how just those simple things to the game, really, really make the game effective and make your teammates better and get you on the scoreboard and on the stat sheet time, because it puts you in good positions for offensive rebounds. It puts you in good positions for easy baskets. And so he does a lot of good basic things that you think that, could port over, especially when you put Zion out there and, other guys who aren't available. And I think the last thing I got to give a big, huge shout out to the hometown guy. I mean, when you talk about the Pelicans, trying to tank and lose games, but you got to be careful putting Alfred out there, because Alfred will get the king cake baby open in the corner if he's standing there too early. So, standing there too long. Alfred Payton has been, a point guard maestro, and he came back, after, going away and not being on the team and playing for Charlotte, and doing things. He came back to the team and picked up right where he left off, finding guys, passing guys open. He just has a feel for the game that I think if you're talking about guys who should be on the team next season, when you talk about what Alfred can do, like when you run into these offensive sets without Zion and without Trey on the floor, because those are the guys that can create a shot for you. And then outside of Dejounte, who's probably going to be out for an extended, there's not a lot of guys who can create their own shot outside of Zion and Dejounte. So you want to have a guy that can create offense for, other guys, right? And get guys open and get guys playing in transition and passing the ball and getting downhill. Well, Elfrid Payton, I don't know if there's any guys that will be out there available that you can have toward. And then, he's a veteran. He's a guy, a professional. This is like, that's the type of guy you want at the end of the bench, right? The thing that makes the Oklahoma City Thunder so great is that you look all the way down at the end of their bench at Kenrich Williams and those guys come, they come in and they contribute, right? As opposed to years, you look for the Pels at the end of the Pels bench for years. You've had guys like Garrett Temple and guys like Jamal Cain and guys who aren't, giving you anything, when you could have a guy like Elfrid Payton, break in case of emergency and get the offense going. So I think EP has shown a lot of real, value to this team, and I would like to see him, stick around for as long as possible. So those are the three things that have stuck out to me in this morass of games that are that's remaining.
Yeah, I mean, we're gonna touch on that point because you just brought up some good points, and I agree with them all, which kind of creates a bigger problem, which we'll talk on in a second. But it does kind of bring you to the question of, okay, well, it seems as if there's some good role players on this roster and pieces and contracts that can be moved that would be valued by other people. So with the Pelicans looking at a top 4 at the moment, we'll see where the lottery lands. The Pelicans pick in a loaded draft plans that everyone is tanking to be a part of. What direction are they really going to go, right? Because, again, the argument earlier in this season and maybe at the beginning of this season, maybe in the offseason, was you can't trade Zion right now because his value is too low, right? Because what are you going to get back? He's coming off an injury again, and people didn't get to see him in the playoffs again. What are you going to do? Well, now, since the pendulum has swung, and then the complete other direction, and he's scoring 40 points and getting triple doubles and on minutes restriction 28, things like this. The business side of things should tell you now's the time to strike. Now's the time to sell while the value is at the highest. And if you're setting up to get one of these guys who looks to be a potential star or a potential high value role player, is now the time to move Zion and really kind of rebuild. What are your thoughts on that? Right? Like, conventional wisdom is looking at it one way and say, hey, history's telling you that, has seen 0 minutes so far. If the excitement's high, maybe now is the time to start listening to offers. But at the same time, if you've been watching Zion, that's a really hard sell to a fan base right after Brandon Ingram gets shifted to a different country. So where are your thoughts on that? What direction do you think the Pelicans are headed at this offseason?
It's funny how it's almost like history is repeating itself, right? Like the Pelicans somehow, by hook or by crook, fall into a high draft pick, right? Don't know where it's going to be. Could be 1, could be 4, whatever. They fall into a draft pick without a high draft pick without thinking about it, right? You have a high profile forward on your team that, you've had I would say mysterious and tumultuous relationship with that has seemed to, obviously in Zion and the Pelicans in their favor, right? They've kind of worked some things out and seem to be on a good accord. But now people are starting to call about that malign forward, right? And so this is kind of like similar to the AD situation, right? Like obviously Zion and AD aren't in the same periods of their careers or don't feel the same way about the city, but having that high profile forward with that high draft pick coming in, where is he going to be able to fit with the high star there? Very similar situations. Well, for me, honestly, I understand about selling high on guys and things like that. I also believe that it is not prudent at all to go through everything you go through with an asset, and then when it's finally time to reap the benefits of what you've gone through, you ship that asset off and just kind of start over, right? And I think that's kind of, if you think the fan base, you think that's a bad sell to the fan base, ask the Dallas Mavericks about, about trading their star player because of a couple of things after you've gone through the maturity issues, the growing issues. They didn't take that very well. And I don't think the city, I know people talk about Zion and everything, but people come and see that guy play ball. I'm in the Smoothie King Center every single night, and I see the jerseys and the people who are sad when Zion doesn't play. And on top of that, I mean, how many times last season, and I'm gonna keep bringing this up, and again, he's now shown some things and he's starting to turn the corner on his career. But how many times last season did we hear, man, the Pelicans should go ahead and blow it all up, trade Zion away, and go ahead and draft Scoot Henderson, right? Like, that's the guy in the future. And I look at you in your face, and I want you to look at me square in the face and tell me where the Pelicans would be if Zion was in Portland and Scoot Henderson was in New Orleans. I don't, I all respect to Scoot. Don't think it would be even a close to same situation. And so with these guys coming in, I've been preaching about it all season, right? These guys are going to be good players. They're going to be, you got a lot of excellent, guys coming in and highly touted guys. But the NBA is a different cut than college basketball, than international basketball. It just is. There are every year there's going to be a Victor Wembanyama or somebody that comes into the league and hits the ground running, and you're like, see, that's a superstar moving forward. Does not mean every single person is going to be like that. And I think, with Zion under contract, without any kind of player option or anything like that, on a great deal, we talk about what Zion is getting paid, $39-40 million, and with some of the other top 10, 20 guys getting paid. You have him under a good contract with no way out other than to just play it or force his way out. Obviously, there's always a way out, but there's nothing in the contract. Bring whoever, if the basketball guys smile upon you and it's number one and it's Cooper Flagg, bring that guy in and have him in a situation where he can look to his right, his left, and his right and see Zion Williamson and see Trey Murphy and see Herb Jones and see Dejounte Murray and see CJ McCollum, maybe if you don't move him before, or whoever you do move him for, and see Jose Alvarado and see guys that, okay, I don't have to come in here and immediately be LeBron James in 2003 in order to save this franchise, right? You could come in and find your way, and work on the things that you're not good at, while also contributing to what should be a good team. Now, again, it's always if healthy. But again, I don't think that trading Zion is the way moving forward. Regardless of if you want this young guy to come in and take over the team, more likely than not, they're not in game one. Like, there are exceptions to the rule, but most times guys aren't ready to come in and affect winning in their rookie year. So I personally wouldn't even entertain it. I think Zion is finally at a point where he's ready to attack this offseason healthy with this mind frame and this mindset. He's shown you a lot of growth this season, and you've gone through so much with Zion. You might as well reap the rewards as long as you can.
Right. So here's where I'm at with it. Just in terms of put all the cards on the table. To your point, my question was going to be, and you kind of led into it, is does your decision change if you get the number one pick and you get Cooper Flagg? And you flat out answered it, and you jumped and said, well, no, I want to see what Cooper looks like with the mix that you already have. Now, here's where I'm at, and I agree with you. I think it's so hard, even if, statistically behind Anthony Davis and behind Zion, Cooper's the next guy, the next American-born guy to come out who has that type of potential to impact your team from a wins and loss perspective early on. Even if that's the case, selling him on, hey, you're taking over for Zion and then you're getting the pieces and then Trey's coming off an injury, you're restarting the clock with now players who are ready to win, now players who are ready to kind of take that next step. And I just don't see where that makes sense or why you're forced into that. Let's play devil's advocate here. Would you take the same trade back that Luka got in Dallas? 1 first-round pick. Let's say it's not Anthony Davis. Let's say it's an age star, maybe Kevin Durant. 1 first-round pick, Kevin Durant, and that's it for Zion right now. I don't think I take that trade. I just don't.
Nah.
It accelerates your clock in a situation where you're looking at a top 5 pick. I understand the Rockets turned over their roster in just a year, and now they've got a great story with Ime Udoka, and they're going to finish top 4 in the West this season. But that's a big gamble, right? Especially if you're David Griffin in this front office. You've pretty much hitched your wagon to Zion one way or the other, and to give up on it right now as you're seeing the light bulb turn on, and God forbid turn on somewhere else in a different small market, and all of a sudden the Zion card pays off. That's you're guaranteed yourself an exit in that scenario. So I just don't see why or Zion moving at all this summer. That being said, should you listen to offers? Yes. You should always listen to offers. You should always, if someone's going to blow your mind and give you some ridiculous, you should always be listening to things. But at the same time, the way that the Pelicans have been moving, I just don't see a Zion trade, regardless of what the next 2 months are going to hold with Zion trade rumors before the draft and after the draft and things like that. I just don't see a way the Pelicans don't, if not anything, double down on what you've seen so far from Zion this back half of the season. Now, you also brought up another point, CJ McCollum. Now, again, if you look at CJ's numbers and you don't watch the Pelicans that often, you're like, man, this man is still averaging 21 points a game, 4 and 4 a night. Like, this guy can contribute every single night. But then to your point earlier, well, you've got Jose Alvarado, and then Dejounte Murray's coming back from injury, and then Brandon Boston you're hoping to keep around, and then Jordan Hawkins you're hoping to continue to grow, and then Antonio Reeves doesn't miss threes apparently. Like, you've got all these guards lined up, right, to play at different points and to impact your roster once all the main guys are healthy. Somewhere in there is an outlier, and it's got to be CJ McCollum just because of the contract that he's on, the age that he is, and how the rest of the roster is designed to be. Let me ask you this question. Do you think, outside of just addressing the Zion situation, what happens with CJ is probably the next biggest item this offseason?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, CJ is in a position where his what you want to do with CJ is not indicative of all of who he is, the player that he is, the value that he brings to the team, both on and off the floor. Because I think CJ's value speaks for itself. Of course, you have your nitpicks with CJ. His defense, people go at him all the time. Sometimes his shot selection, but for a team that needs him to be in the role that he was supposed to be here in New Orleans, if another team has that role open and available for him, that third tertiary scorer, like every single night, the first and the second guy is out there. Like, for instance, if there was a way that he could get to like Denver, where like he looks to his left and his right, and Jokic is always out there, Jamal Murray is out there, and Aaron Gordon is out there, and like CJ can just go there and not think and put shots up and get, like, that is the perfect position for CJ McCollum. The problem is when you talk about the New Orleans Pelicans and you start off with, okay, you can bet that probably Zion is going to start. It's the same question we've asked at the beginning of the season. You can bet Zion is going to start. Mm-hmm. You can bet Trey Murphy is going to start. You could probably bet Yves Missi, or if you find another center for any reason, that person is going to start, right? So now you're at 3 people. I don't think you're benching Herb Jones. I don't think that's not going to happen.
If this season was any indication of what the Pelicans look like defensively without Herb Jones, that man will be starting every single second that he can for the Pelicans.
Exactly. So that's 4, and you haven't even gotten to Dejounte, who you brought in to be the starting point guard. Obviously, he might start the season off on the injury list, but oh yeah, you have a top 4 pick as well. That's on top whatever pick, lottery pick, that's going to be coming in looking for minutes as well. And God forbid if it's Cooper Flagg, right? So I could probably bet you that Cooper Flagg is going to start for the Pelicans if you do draft him. So, and you talk about $33 million, being, for CJ McCollum as well. So that is the situation that you find yourself going into. So again, it's more about the numbers. It's more about, when you look at what the Pelicans have and what they need, it's that. And then CJ McCollum's contract and his skill set, it's going to be very, very valuable this offseason. The second the league calendar turns into this being his final year of his contract, because it's an expiring deal. So a team like, a team that goes all in and say, hey, let's bring CJ in. And if CJ doesn't work with this team, well, that's still $30 million coming off your books. So either way it go, he's a valuable asset at this point. And so, when you look at the fact that, you have guys that need to come in and get minutes to show you before their contract is due. You talk about guys like Jordan Hawkins. And then also when you have another influx of talent that's about to come, CJ McCollum, not because of the player that he is, because he still has a lot of value to this team and can do a lot of things for this team. Just the asset that he becomes once the calendar turns. You talk about always listening to offers. There are going to be offers for CJ McCollum. And so, I think that is somebody that you look next to, as the next guy, the next domino to fall on this team as far as contracts and big moves go.
Let me ask you this. Is there a value point where the Pelicans re-sign CJ McCollum and extend him on a cheap contract toward the end of his career? He's talked about wanting to finish his career here. Again, like we talked about so many times on this pod, a lot of CJ's role in coming to New Orleans was off the court. And if you listen to Trey Murphy and you listen to Zion Williamson and you listen to Jordan Hawkins and you listen to Jose Alvarado talk, the first person they mentioned of Antonio Reeves talk, the first person they mentioned when how do I become a pro, what does being consistent look like, is CJ McCollum. Hey, we really just been looking at what CJ does. That was a lot of what he was brought in to do, on top of compliment Brandon Ingram and Zion. We see how, that worked out with their lack of availability. But a lot of it was to grow this locker room up. And now you're getting to that point where Zion looks like he's kind of taking that next step of maturity. And Trey Murphy as well, and Herb as well. He hasn't played a game in 2025, but Herb Jones is on the bench every single game with his arm in the sling. Like, those are your leaders of this team now. And so now you're putting CJ in a tough situation where we need your buckets, but at the same time, like, are we holding you back from being CJ because we need all these other guys to get minutes too at the same time?
Yeah, I obviously CJ's value is there. The problem I don't want you to run into is that, again, there's a value for CJ McCollum, and even if there's a cheaper price point that he's willing, to say, okay, we can work on that. What I don't want is the Pelicans to get in a situation where they're letting their love and affinity for CJ get in the way of good business. Because if somebody comes in and says, listen, I think CJ McCollum can get us to the next step, he's the tertiary player, here's getting a pick in salary, a pick back in this loaded draft class and salary, expiring contract or whatever have you, or a young player, whatever the case is. You got guys like Antonio Reeves, like West Bank Rick is talking in the chat. You got guys like Antonio Reeves. You got guys like Brandon Boston. You got guys like Jordan Hawkins, who may not be able to give you everything, but at one point in one package, like CJ can, right? He can give you 40 in a game that that if the defense isn't worried about him, he give you 40, like we saw right before All-Star break, where he put it on the line and was the CJ that everybody knows and loves. But you can get that for 40% of CJ McCollum's contract and then also turn that into something. That's the only thing I don't want to pay. So if you don't like the offers that you're getting for CJ McCollum, then yes, obviously you even take it down to the trade deadline if you need to, especially with Dejounte being out, right? You're going to need somebody else to handle the ball and do whatever you might need done. But I don't want the Pelicans to be, let their affinity for CJ get in the way of good business. And I think, again, it's nothing on CJ as the player, nothing on CJ as the person. He's done nothing but be a professional and be a scorer and be a bucket. And what is he, like top 3-4 on three-pointers made in franchise history, or the franchise leader in three-pointers made? I mean, the guy is a bucket. The NBA is about business, right? And it's about the numbers, it's about salary crunches. And I just think that, at this point in time, if there's an offer out there for CJ, somebody comes knocking on your door for his services, and it's an offer that you say, okay, this is something we would be interested in. Don't let the affinity, don't let the love for him get in the way of that good business.
Well, I mean, if you look at the track record, it didn't get in the way when it came to Brandon Ingram. It didn't get in the way when it came to Najee Marshall. It didn't get in the way when it came to Josh Hart. All these people who are loved by the team, when push came to shove, the Pelicans had a number, and if it wasn't that number, they moved on. So you talk a little bit about the tanking with all the March Madness going on. Again, shout out to my Razorbacks. Good luck tomorrow with all the March Madness going on. And there's an article put out the other day talking about tanking and how it's ruined the NBA in some way. Look, I think the Pelicans have done the best job they could at ethically tanking in terms of still giving you Zion minutes, still giving you Trey Murphy minutes, but still reeling it back in terms of trying to give themselves position. You and I talked about it. After David Griffin came through the midseason presser and was like, we know where we're at. We know it's not good. We know the injuries are bad. We know we're in a position to get a good grab pick. We kind of knew what it was after that. But if you still look at some of the other teams around the NBA, they're not even trying to give you any type of semblance of what the team is. And so in some regards, kudos to the Pelicans for trying to put their players out. But again, here are some of the questions that I bring to you. Now, we talked about, Trey had a successful surgery on his right labrum, torn labrum today. Herb Jones was earlier this year. Dejounte Murray was earlier this year. I think you need one of these picks because I don't know if all of those guys are available to start early next. I know Dejounte is not going to be. So what are your thoughts on, hey, we need to make sure that we get a good pick because you're kind of worried about the start of next season and not having the 5 guys that you just talked about yet again to start the year?
Yeah, this has been the season of pivots, right? Just pivot. I think, you start off this season coming in like, hey, deepest team in the league. Then game 1, Zion's not there. And then DeJounte breaks his hand. So you pivot. Then you got Brandon Ingram and Zion and no role players. And then you got role players and no Brandon Ingram and Zion. And then Brandon Ingram is down. And so you switched all of these. So I think the goals and what has been going on with the Pelicans have shifted even in this back half of the season. I think once the midseason presser came, the goal was, okay, let's get some development going. All right, let's get some Zion, some Trey Murphy, 2-man game. Let's let these guys learn, okay? And again, whether it was right or wrong, I think you did need to figure out some things between Trey and Zion, and you started to do so. Again, of course, because it's New Orleans, a freak injury happens, and now Trey Murphy, is out for the season with that torn labrum. And I think once Zion, we've already saw the ethical tanking when you see Zion score 40 points and then the next night say, oh, he needs to return to play conditioning. And I'm like, well, 24 hours ago, he was kicking somebody's ass. And so now you need, okay, cool. So you see what's going on, minutes restrictions and all of that. I think once Trey went down and Zion fell on his back in Minnesota, I think that gave the Pelicans all they needed to say, okay, Zion, this ain't that no more. We done with that. All right. So we're going to give you the lower back contusion. So was it right or was it wrong? Listen, to me, I think you needed to find some answers out with the Pelican, with Trey and Zion as this is your new fit moving forward. Especially with Jordan Hawkins out there and other guys available. I think you wanted to see some things. Obviously it ended in a freak accident yet again. But again, like you said, these guys got some injuries that, they might not be the same player they are to game 1 where they need to be next season because of some of these injuries. And so, I think what you see now, I see people asking in the comments, who is Lester Corones or and those, Keon Brooks, those guys, this is what it is. And so it's hard to watch and it's hard to go through, but you got to grit your teeth and get through it because this is how you end up, with the guy who can come in and help kind of keep the team afloat. If Trey Murphy isn't back or, isn't 100% back or back at all, if Herb Jones's shoulder, lingers on a little bit longer, right? And DeJounte for sure is not going to be ready for game 1. So, these are the type of things that, you need to have other guys available and ready to play. And as sucky as it is, the more you lose, the better chance you get that guy who can kind of help and come in and help and keep the team afloat during those times. So it is what it is. Like it is bad, but again, to your point, the Pelicans gave you Zion and Trey and had some other guys, Jordan Hawkins out there. Man, that lineup the Sixers put out there, I was like, man, they resting Quentin Grimes. That's how you know they tanking. I'm like, damn, Quentin Grimes is getting rest. It's incredible. So I mean, it is terrible basketball being played, but it is ugly means justifying an end. So it is what it is.
Yeah, I understand from that standpoint. And like you touched on it earlier in the show, there's been development so far. Again, you've seen flashing from Yves. You've seen big flashings from Karlo. I think this is going to be a big summer for both of them, pun intended. They both got to get stronger. They both got to get confident. I feel like a couple years ago, we were on the pod saying if Herb could just get a little bit more offense and Trey could just get a little bit more defense this summer, they'd both be better. I feel the same way about Yves and Karlo. If Karlo could get more confident on the defensive end and know that you could jump out the gym, and if Yves could get more confident and stop running away from the basket and go and be confident attacking the rim this summer, I think they will be much better on the other end. The other side of this is like you talked about the guard situation, and you said lightly about the Elfrid Payton situation. Look, I'm gonna go a step further. You bring up a really good point in that this team is low on people that can create for themselves and for other people consistently. As soon as Zion sits down, you can tell. As soon as Trey's not available, you can tell. If CJ's not in, like you can tell because the ball just dribbles around the three-point line over and over, and no one ever attacks. And Elfrid Payton literally got on a flight, showed up, and the first time he played significant has 13 assists. Like, and it all just felt easily. And I understand they're not playing versus anybody who's really trying to win and the level of competition and things like that. But it's just the eye test of how the ball moves and how the energy moves and how everyone else plays better. And for me, I think if you talk about an end of the bench guy, but if you look at the makeup of guards that the Pelicans have, right? Let's take CJ McCollum out of the conversation, depending on what happens with him this summer. But Dejounte Murray, he's kind of a combo guard that leads toward a point guard. Jose Alvarado, kind of a combo guard who's not really a point guard either. Elfrid would be the one point guard on the team so that if you've got a whole bunch of guys that struggle to create for themselves, he's the one that creates the dribble penetration and gets easy shots for Karlo and gets even shots for Yves. Like when he is off the court versus when he's on, you see a completely different center play and what they're able to do and how they look like as threats on the offensive end. And that's something that, again, Willie Green has said it multiple times. Elfrid Payton deserves to be in this league. He deserves to be on the Pelicans as far as I'm concerned. Like, I think that is it'll be interesting what happens this summer if he hangs around the team. Is he able to kind of say, like, every time I show up, I'm giving you double-digit assists regardless of what time of the year it is. I think it's going to be hard to keep him off. And you and I have been talking off the pod. Look, I know it's not a whole lot of minutes, but, like, I think that Antonio Reeves has that microwave scorer in him. Like, every time he comes in and he talks about just being ready for the moment and ready for my minutes and things like that. And the more and more you see him, the more consistent he is. Now, I think the reason he hasn't been given some of these minutes down the stretch is because you just have so many guards. And, like, we look at, what this roster is going to be and what the changes are going to be with the draft and upcoming free agency and trades and things like that. What are your thoughts? Like, we even talked about Bruce Brown, who's on expiring, who may stick around the team or whatnot. But what are your thoughts on this? Like, these last couple of games out of the stretch, are people playing to say, hey, we are comfortable now moving on because we have Antonio Reeves, we have Brandon Boston, we have all these other guys?
Yeah, I mean, we talk a lot about how the Pelicans are built and how they play are mirroring two different teams, right? They're built in the way of OKC, and they play like Boston, right? With the two wing stars when they had Zion and Brandon, when even Zion and Trey were kind of complementary guys around them, right? Not three stars. It's like 2 stars and like guys around them who can do things. But when you talk about how the team is built and you talk about how they're built like OKC, it's through the draft and it's through the talent, that they find and that they cultivate, right? Like they find Kenrich Williams, they find Lou Dort, right? They find, Case and Wallace, Isaiah Joe. These aren't like star role players that they pluck from this team and pluck from that team and pluck from this team, kind of like how the Celtics are, right? Like that's how the Celtics are built. The OKC is built through the draft, and that's how the Pelicans need to kind of build the rest of this team out and how they've done it, but how they need to continue to do it. And so what I mean by that is you find these guys that Antonio Reeves and Alfred, bringing Alfred back and finding some chemistry with him and ball movement and other guys. And yeah, they aren't star role players that you've taken from another team that everybody knows. But these are the guys that you cultivate and you let them play and you let them get into the system. Let them get around the team. And these are the guys at the end of the bench who come in and help you win games when the guys are healthy. And when those guys are not available, they've been around the system. They've played with the team. And so you're not looking for names at this point. You have a lot of high-end talent, top-of-the-end talent. Everybody knows who Zion is. Everybody knows who Trey Murphy is. Herb Jones, Dejounte Murray, CJ McCollum. Like those are your names, right? And whoever this pick is, Cooper, everybody knows who Cooper Flagg is. Everybody knows who Dylan Harper is. Everybody knows who Ace Bailey is. Everybody knows who VJ Edgecombe is. Like they know who these guys are. But those guys at the end, Alfred Payton, Antonio Reeves, like Karlo Matkovic, you have those guys. You keep those guys around. And yeah, you let the play on the floor decide and make those decisions, right? Like Alfred, every time he gets on the floor, he's getting you double-digit assists without Zion on the floor, without Trey Murphy on the floor. So, of course, you would want to keep this guy around who is not looking for $7 million, $8 million, who could be at the end of the bench getting paid and also be a veteran to, the younger guys who you are about to draft. Again, the next group of guys are teenagers. Like, all of those guys are teenagers. And so this is a guy that can come in and be productive for you on the floor, as well as do that veteran leadership thing that you look for with guys like Larry Nance, with guys like JV, with guys like Javonte Green, who you keep searching for that veteran at the end of the bench. EP is your guy, and he's from the city. So, I mean, like, that's always love there. And it also, like, again, we talk about CJ and what he can, what his situation is in his contract. If you put Antonio Reeves and Brandon Boston together on the floor and give them CJ's 20 shots a game, 22 shots a game, like I would venture to say that you could probably get at least close to CJ's, average contribution every night. So like you let these guys play. Obviously, Brandon Boston is hurt, but like you let Antonio Reeves play because these are the guys that's gonna come in and supplement the end of the bench and get in and give you minutes and time. You've already seen this work out well with Najee Marshall and Jose Alvarado. Like you've already seen these guys come in and contribute and beat out some of those named Devontae Graham and names that, okay, you go get that guy. This is you grow these guys organically because you build like OKC has built. Aaron Wiggins, all of those guys that they found, they didn't pluck them from anybody. They played through the seasons, these seasons where everybody sees Shea and they're like, oh, they've been great forever. Like, nah, Shea have 3-4 seasons where they were trash. But that's how they built Jalen Williams and Chet Holmgren and Aaron Wiggins and Isaiah Joe. That's how they found these guys, through letting those guys play in those terrible years and develop. And so I do think you're looking for guys. This is why it's not useless games. These guys can contribute and will be needed to contribute next year, especially when you talk about some of these contracts that's at the top with the Pelicans and that you're going to have to continue to figure out. So, yes, indeed, you watch these games and let the play on the court decide what's going on with these guys. And if Alfred is the guy that every time he gets on the court is moving the ball and keeping the offense going, why wouldn't you want to keep him around?
The thing I look at is like, look at how it felt. Not even the result, just how it felt when Kelly Olynyk was brought over. Just another guy, veteran guy who's been around but can still contribute. Not just a veteran, literally is showing his veteran capabilities while he plays, right? In the way that he's able to create for other people and get people in the right position, even though he got traded to the team in the middle of the season. I think Alfred is the same thing, just in a different body, right? In terms of, and when he's in the game, all of a sudden you're forced to push the pace. All of a sudden you're forced to play uphill and to play, and play downhill and play with some type of momentum. And that's what the identity of this team should be, right? Again, this year has just been, fallen in shambles because no one's been available. But at its peak and at its core, this is a super athletic group that wants to fly up and down the court, that wants to defend on both ends, that wants to take it to the rack. That's what Alfred Paper embodies, right? That's what EP embodies. And so bring a guy like that, and even Kelly Olynyk, who's not necessarily a up-tempo guy, he gives you different answers to the test, right? Like when someone's coming at you and stopping you from getting into fast break, how do you look in the half court, which has been a disaster for the Pelicans for the past couple of years? Well, having a guy who can operate out of the mid post, or you can throw to and can be a source of offense for a couple of possessions in a row, that is something that you want to have on your bench to be able to go to at different times. And if you've got that in EP and as a veteran, you got that at KO as a veteran, that just gives you more to the team other than Zion, go save us. Trey, what do you got? Top 5 pick. Hope you can score by yourself. Like, it just gives you more ways to beat opponents as you want to get into some of these more meaningful games. So again, there's not a whole lot of those left, about 9 of them left for the Pelicans this season. You probably will see less and less of the names I'm waiting for the Yves Missi sprained toenail. Like, I'm waiting for the Jose Alvarado, my tooth hurts a little too. I'm waiting for some of those to happen as you wrap up the season and just try to get to the offseason with no more injuries. But what you got left for the people, Garrick, as we wrap up the show?
Yeah, as always, you never know what people are going through, so give someone a smile today. Yeah, it is. I envision a lot of guys are going to get some run at the end of this season. These are meaningful minutes for these guys, so it's not for nothing. Again, you want to watch for things even at the end of this season that has been full of just downs. There's ups and downs, but mostly downs. There are still guys who are playing who can contribute next season. Alfred is one, and Jordan Hawkins and Antonio Reeves. Like, these guys are going to get some minutes out there. And you're going to see, what they can do and what they can contribute to the season next year. So, still watch these guys, watch these guys compete because they are playing for something, even though it's not playoffs. And although the basketball can get kind of icky sometimes. So, as always, follow myself at Garrick_Rattler. Follow my brother at Raphael_Rattler. Follow the page at NO_basketball, no E. That's on all your social medias. Like the episode below, and we'll see you guys next time.